How's it going, YouTube? I've already done a video on Ashes of Creation, open world PvP, and how I think it can be, and in fact I think it probably will be the best open world PvP MMO in history. However, I thought it would still be worth looking at past PvP heavy MMOs and what they got wrong. And I know some people are going to say Ashes is a PvX MMO, it's not PvP only, and to that I say yes, that's true. They're going to have a lot of PvE and artisan system and other features. However, it has much more PvP ingrained into the systems than most modern MMOs, and in the last 20 years we've seen countless MMOs that have heavy PvP elements fail. So I thought it'd be worth looking at what they got wrong, and let's see if Ashes can improve upon those things. I thought I would start by listing out the things that I think killed a lot of PvP MMOs in the past. Number 1, pay to win. Number 2, underfunded and no polish. Number 3, game engine problems. Number 4, PvP was too hardcore. Number 5, too much reliance on Sandbox and player-driven content. Number 6, uninspired PvE content. And number 7, overly grindy player progression. So with Ashes and the first point, pay to win, I'm highly confident this game will not have pay to win. Moving on. The second point, underfunded and no polish. Unfortunately, a lot of PvP heavy MMOs were developed by small indie teams. Large publishers did not want to take the risk of doing something that for the last 20 years has not been considered mainstream. So you have these small indie devs that try to fund via crowdfunding and just never raise enough capital to create a viable product. Ashes does not have this problem, as they are funded at roughly $45 million, with $30 million from Steven and $15 million from crowdfunding. This is more than enough for an MMO, even a very ambitious MMO. The average historically has been around $20 million. The next issue I have often seen is when MMO devs have tried to create their own game engine instead of using existing game engines. Many MMOs have never made it to launch that had proprietary engines. And the ones that did make it to launch had massive issues and continue to have issues. This is why you see so many MMOs in development currently using Unreal Engine or Unity. Ashes is developing this game in Unreal Engine 5, so this is also not an issue. As for point number 4, the PvP being too hardcore, there have been many attempts to create a hardcore, full loot sandbox MMO. And to be fair, I haven't seen a serious attempt to make one of these games. Almost all of them were buggy messes. Albion to me might be the best attempt, but I feel the attempt to make a cross-platform mobile and PC hybrid game led to a game that was not very fun to play on either device. The combat was dumbed down to accommodate mobile, and the isometric style is not appealing to many, including myself. Maybe if a highly polished third-person perspective hardcore PvP MMO ever was seriously attempted, it might work. Luckily for Ashes, it is not going nearly as hardcore with their PvP as the full loot MMOs did. This naturally makes success easier to achieve. But to be fair, this game is more brutal with the PvP always on and death penalties than most modern MMOs. I am of the opinion that the corruption system has a good chance of preventing this game from becoming a gank box. So I think Ashes will be fine here. Moving on to point number 5, a lot of PvP MMOs have had an over-reliance on sandbox and player-driven content. Luckily for Ashes, it is billing itself as a PvX Sandpark MMO instead of a sandbox. And I think based on what we have seen so far, that classification is an accurate one. The nodes and freeholds and how the world changes with node development are certainly more in the sandbox category, but there's a massive amount of traditional theme park content as well. It is delivered in a way that encourages socialization and interaction much more than most theme park MMOs. So again, on this point, I like the direction Intrepid is headed, which brings me to the final points. And finally, this is an area that I can't commit to saying I am comfortable just yet. Ashes heavily clones Arcade, and while they have already changed the core design of Arcade in some good ways, I still have some concerns about the PvE as a whole, because PvE in Arcade in many ways was not good, and as I said before, there are simply more PvE players than PvP players in MMOs. I personally am excited about Ashes because of the PvP and because I love PvP, but I am the exception and not the norm. Time after time, MMOs that focus on PvP have terrible PvE. Ashes needs to do both well, especially if it wants to bring in new MMO players, because almost all MMO players start as PvEers and eventually transition to PvP. Most new MMO players are not jumping straight into PvP as their focus. Now this section, and explaining everything there is to explain with why I think there could be issues with Ashes PvE, got to be way too large to put into this video. So I've broken it out into a video that I will hopefully be releasing next weekend. So next weekend, be on the lookout for that video. And finally guys, if you liked the video, consider subscribing. Almost 500 subs. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.